From there, you now have questions about what's really going on in Russia. And the fact is, this story is substantive. I mean, it's substantial. People should be talking about it. The media is not reporting on it. This is the craziest thing to me. Whenever you...
No, they're all over this. Every single time I ever hear Tim Pool or Glenn Greenwald or anyone suggest, oh, and then the media is radio silent on this, I'm always like, oh, really? And then I go over to the mainstream media, and then what do you know? It's like front page everywhere. It's like, oh, Newland reveals that there could be concerns about biolabs. Everyone's concerned about biolabs or bioweapons, and all of a sudden it's a massive thing.
Does that mean the U.S. is making weapons? No, it doesn't. But I do have questions. Because if the U.S.
Okay, so you see, right there, he did it. Right there. That's it right there. Does this mean this? No. Does this mean that? No. But. It's where he twists the whole thing around, keeps you scared, keeps you engaged, keeps you clicking, keeps you subscribing, keeps you giving the thumbs up. Even though, once again, yes, he is talking about level 2 security for something. All right, so speaking of which, we got to start talking about the Ukraine lab bioweapons or biolabs. So maybe I should quickly just do a drawing. Draw something. Sketchpad. Yeah, I think it's time. To learn for a little bit. I just want to quickly, and this is not going to be anything too scientific, but let's just see TV. All right, this will be our television, I guess. Doesn't look that great, but anyways, okay. So here's the TV. And here is brain. What? There's no brains? I don't want to have to draw my own brain. How about mind? What? No brains or mind? All right, hold on. Let's just find a good brain. Brain PNG. There's some juicy brains. Oh, there's a cute brain. All right, we got ourselves a cute brain. Now it says, please wait. Your brain is being prepared. Okay, I'm preparing my brain. If you're just tuning in, you're probably a little bit confused. Don't worry, it gets better. The stream will make sense eventually. Okay, let's see if this works. It's not letting me have my brain, so I'm gonna copy and paste the brain. There we are. No, that's the TV. I wanna. Oh, okay. Now we got our brain. Okay, so get this, and we're gonna say propaganda right up here. So this is the propaganda on TV, and this is your resistance to propaganda. Big brain IQ. There you have it. So we have this. And the propaganda might be like, no-fly zone and nuclear war is poggies, actually. Coming to you from the TV. And so this is your resistance, all right? And now I'm going to illustrate the powers of your resistance. Let's just say with red. Beautiful communist red. So you have all these layers of skepticism that you've built up over the years, right? And these layers of skepticism are for a variety of reasons. This one could be that, like, well, under capitalism, the purpose of the mass media is, of course, to sell things that are going to generate outrage and advertiser space. So it's probably blah, blah, blah. That's probably this layer right here. Or maybe we wouldn't say it's the fourth layer, okay? So there's that. And then this one, the next one is like, well, typically I would think that a no-fly zone also means that we have to enforce a no-fly zone, which means that we would have to bomb a Russian plane, which means we would directly provoke Russia into war. I don't want that. Third one, yeah, there's no such thing as a tactical nuclear war. There's no such thing as a friendly fire between two nuclear powers sending just a couple of nukes and then the whole thing calms down. Nuclear war, especially large-scale deployment of nuclear weapons, would mean the annihilation of all life on Earth. So the idea of even entertaining it as a possibility should be always at zero. Good idea. Okay, that's this layer, right? And so forth and so forth. All of these things. And it's protecting you. Look how nice and calm and happy your brain is during this whole process. The problem being is that during wartime, and then we'll say that the green line means wartime manufactured consent. I probably spelled everything wrong again. Okay, so consente. Under wartime, the green is going to represent how much more amplified everything gets. And now I'm going to show you a scientific demonstration of this. And check this out. Boom, 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 boom. Again, this is science, okay? And then, what are you, a traitor? Do you not believe in the cause? Do you not support Ukraine? Oh, of course you would be a Kremlin agent, pro-Russia stooge, garbage. I'm not a traitor. I am loyal. I am a patriot. I believe in the future of our society. I am ready to go to war. And it's reached you. And that's kind of what happens, unfortunately. And it happens very quickly. It happens way faster than I expected to see it happening if you do media analysis on a regular basis. But you're also seeing this happen not just for something like, no-fly zone, nuclear war, stuff like that, but a whole bunch of random bullshit propaganda that is coming out on a regular amount of media on a regular basis. And one of the big things right now is, I know, okay, because I've listened to what he said, that Glenn Greenwald isn't taking a, oh, this is a great thumbnail. Glenn Greenwald isn't taking a, like, hey, I'm going to try and promote and accelerate war stance. In general, Glenn Greenwald has been doing what he always does. He likes to say that everyone else besides him is a hypocrite. He's the smartest person in the room. He's the only one who's able to see everything for what it is. Here's the truth. Cool. I get to go on Tucker Carlson again. He goes on Tucker Carlson. Once he's on there, he starts fucking spewing Alex Jones levels of wild batshit, wild and crazy stuff, okay? What he's been saying lately on Tucker Carlson when it relates to biolabs, bioweapons, all that kind of stuff would have, if Alex Jones was saying it out loud, it would be hard to differentiate between the two. So I'm going to go down and break through, I guess, a couple of the wild stuff that he's promoting, pushing onto his Rumble as well. But something to keep in mind, it's not just him. It is just the right. As a whole, the right seems concerned and very, very, very interested in this new narrative, which is the biolabs, the bioweapons, the bioleaks, all that kind of stuff. And again, I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to come at this from a scientific perspective and tell you. I mean, just on the surface, I can tell you, it seems very bizarre to me in this day and age why a biolab research facility is getting conflated with a bioweapons lab facility. And then, Glenn had an answer for that too. He's like, it's because in your minds, you haven't thought yet that the two could be this. Yes, of course, you could use what is bio research to turn it into bioweapons, of course, but it's very dangerous to be framing it that way, that these are bioweapons lab facilities. Like, the reason why this is scary is because, again, in a wartime, a precursor to war, a precursor to invasion, a precursor to all those kind of things comes in the form of propaganda. In the case of Russia propaganda, what they have been telling us for a long time is not this stuff. What they have been telling us for a long time is that, hey, we have to get the Nazis. Yay. So we're saving the world by getting rid of all the Nazis. Turns out all the Nazis in the world right now are concentrated into Ukraine. But once we denazify Ukraine, we can move on and denazify the rest of, all these geostrategic, politically motivated areas that happen to have a lot of connections with the Tsarist Empire. Anyways, so that's what you're getting out of the exact opposite end. If you are going to tell people, hey, by the way, there are some things there that could have the potential to create weapons of mass destruction, hopefully that doesn't ring too many bells. Or there are bioweapons lab facilities, biochemistry lab facilities, they have just the worst kind of stuff. And they're funded by Fauci. And because of the money that comes from the Fauci organization, they are also in conjunction with Wuhan, China. And that's why they invented and weaponized the coronavirus. And they use that. And they've got anthrax. And now they're going to send the coronavirus and the anthrax. And all of this is coming out. And we have to justify our complete and utter liberation of this country. We are not actually invading Ukraine. We are liberating them, not only from Nazis, but also from these mad biochemists. And Saddam Hussein is alive. The zombie of Saddam Hussein has been resurrected, and he is living there, and he is building even more weapons of mass destruction. So all of this is very crucial and important, right? But again, this propaganda, and this works in both directions, is just intended to, and during the wartime, your defenses are broken down, and you have to become part and get on board with this groupthink. And this is what the conservatives and the right are trying to push out on the other end. So let's take a quick look. First at the smartest of them all.
Now, Russia and China have been pushing the narrative that the U.S. has been funding biological research labs in Ukraine. When we first surfaced about a week ago, many in the media said that it was fake news. The U.S. is not funding these labs. These are Ukrainian labs. Now, for the most part, these stories didn't actually even address the issue of whether or not they were labs. They just said the whole story was fake, which creates an interesting predicament. If you are hanging out with some friends and you say, I heard there are biolabs in Ukraine, The only
I heard from some friends. This is a great way to start any source.
only sources you can find are debunked conspiracy theory, false news, but they're different stories. And this is often a propaganda technique put on by the mainstream or corporate press to obfuscate what is true. What is true? There are Ukrainian biological research labs. The U.S. is concerned that Russia will get their hands on the research. Now, there are some...
By the way, there's like just bio research labs everywhere. Everywhere. There's bio research labs in Canada. It's one of the things. One of the things we need to do is, if we have a large scientific community and body of scientists working cooperatively together to find out things about things like diseases, for example, they have laboratories, and in those laboratories they will do work on biology. Like that in and of itself is something that was going to exist before or after there was a declaration of war, an invasion, or anything like these. Are things that exist globally in a lot of countries. The weird thing comes in where you have people like, again, Glenn Greenwald and Tucker Carlson, who are like, why Ukraine? Why would they do this? It doesn't make any sense. And you're like, well, no, these biolabs exist in a lot of different countries. This isn't specifically a Ukrainian, US, Russia thing. It's now being framed as that, though, because that's the important part. If you do media analysis, you have to understand what they're trying to do in the narrative that they're pushing.
Fact check.
Hey, non-binary is a very good point. A COVID testing lab is technically a biolab. That's right. Yeah. I mean, you may have biolabs in your own. I'm not going to go this far, but hey, if you took home a rapid antigen test and you did it and you shook it up and you looked for the results, congratulations. You too have performed the same thing well, no, not the exact same thing, but you get what I'm saying, right? We have little portable take-home McBiolabs.
They're saying it's just like food prep stuff. It's not even that big of a deal. Like, food is biological, so you're acting a little bit crazy. The narrative that we're hearing from Russia and China is that the U.S. is funding Ukrainian labs and they're working on very serious pathogens. There may be some truth to this, but I do think the Russian and Chinese narrative is the worst possible interpretation. And here's the challenge. Right now, we have a viral story. Victoria Nuland, testifying before the Senate, said there are biological research labs in Ukraine and we're concerned Russia gets them. And Marco Rubio said, but in your mind, if there was a biological weapons attack, there's no doubt it would be Russia. And she went, yes. And everyone's kind of like, you're leading the witness. Let her answer the questions. From there, you now have questions about what's really going on in Russia. And the fact is, this story is substantive. I mean, it's substantial. People should be talking about it. The media is not reporting on it. This is the craziest thing to me. Whenever you...
No, they're all over this. Every single time I ever hear Tim Pool or Glenn Greenwald or anyone suggest, and then the media is radio silent on this, I'm always like, oh, really? And then I go over to the mainstream media, and then what do you know? It's like front page everywhere. It's like, oh, Nuland reveals that there could be concerns about biolabs. Everyone's concerned about biolabs or bioweapons, and all of a sudden it's a massive thing.
Try to look up the story about the biolabs in Ukraine. What do you get? You get a bunch of posts about debunked conspiracies.
Yeah, my dad brought this up to me today. See, what does that tell you? I mean, hopefully your dad's not one of the people who gets his news exclusively from Facebook, because this was all over Facebook over the weekend. Facebook was having quite the time with this. But to suggest that this is just like, this is a cover-up. Like, you were trying to make it sound like it's a cover-up. This is all the media is talking about. You're not unique, Tim Pool. The reason I'm reporting on it is because everyone else is talking about it, and it's gotten too far, and someone needs to debunk this fucking bullshit, because none of us are scientists, so we should listen to the scientists again in this case.
Theories. This is the game they play I've often warned you about, and if you watch Timcast IRL, you heard me mention this the other day. There will be a story that'll say something like, for instance, I will go out and do a backflip. And the media will say, Tim Pool does backflip. Well, to fact check it and claim it's not true, you'll see like Snopes or these other outlets say, did Tim Pool really do a backflip on Sunday? On Sunday? False. And then you'll have this big long-winded speech about Tim Pool is claimed that he did a backflip, but people need to understand. And then at the bottom, it'll say, well, Tim Pool did do a backflip. It was actually Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Thus, it was Saturday, not Sunday. False. So when you act...
Okay, so I know it's nice, but let's go to Glenn Greenwald's reading of this and see what Nuland actually said. Any attempt to claim that Ukraine's biological facilities are just benign and standard medical labs is negated by Nuland's explicitly grave concern that Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of those facilities, and that the U.S. government, therefore, is, right this minute, working with Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces. That is absolutely ridiculous framing. This is propaganda. Okay? Any attempt to claim that Ukraine's biological facilities are just benign because they may have concerns about Russian forces taking over those facilities. I'm not saying this proves or disproves in either direction whether or not they are benign, but you cannot then use this as like, no, this is proof that they aren't, because they do not want Russians to gain control of it. Well, of course they fucking don't. For a variety of reasons. Could be because there are dangerous things inside. Could be because there's not. But when you frame it this way, it gets everyone really scared. Really scared. And especially when you keep on pushing it. Russia has its own advanced medical labs. After all, it was one of the first countries to develop a COVID vaccine, one which Lancet said was pronounced was safe and effective, even though the US officials, blah, 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 refused this year to recognize. The only one to be quite concerned about these biological research facilities falling into Russian hands. Yeah. I mean, there's cause for concerns for a lot of things that currently are under Russia's hands to not fall into Russia's hands. Nuclear power plants. Yes. Now, does that mean that Russia is taking those nuclear power plants and then trying to turn them thermonuclear and detonate a giant nuclear explosion bomb? Well, we don't know either way. There's no evidence to tell us whether they are going to do that or not going to do that. But it is of concern that they don't gain control of those nuclear power plants. Turns out they did. Well, now that they have them, are they going to now try and detonate a thermonuclear bomb inside it and kill all life on Earth? We don't know. It sounds very scary when I say that sentence out loud right now because it's ambiguous. I have no way of being proven or disproven whether or not what I'm saying is true. But boy, right now, aren't you sitting at home all terrified and scared? Because yes, they're in control of a nuclear power plant that they could, in theory, do something really bad with, but they haven't yet, but they could. Doesn't it sound incredibly, incredibly scary if I say it like that? That's the danger of all of this.
Even though I don't...
And no, he did not do a backflip. I don't have to be the one to burst all your bubbles.
...protect my property. Truth be told, I don't necessarily believe that Joe Biden would do anything to protect my property or my life or my rights, but I certainly think that if Russia were to win, China were to win, and they become a more dominant power, it'll negatively impact even the administrative state in the US, and they don't want that. So at least I can say that, right? Well, let's read. And I want to show you this actual page from it's ua.usembassy.gov talking about the biological threat reduction program. Are they actually providing?
They're still sus as fuck. We're going to get into these biolabs themselves, okay? But I do want to bring this up because, again, the way it is being framed is as if this is a new revelation that these biolabs exist in other countries. Not alone does the United States have biological research facilities in other countries. They have hundreds of them. They work in conjunction with other countries that have many of them. There are biological research facilities in Canada. It's the same thing as in that there are nuclear power plants in Ukraine. Is it a dangerous and scary thing for Russia to take over those nuclear power plants? Yes, it is. Was it horrifying to see them, light one of the administration buildings on fire when they should really not be doing any kind of warfare near a nuclear facility? Yes, it is. Do they currently have control of it? Yes. Once they got control of it, did they want to detonate or turn the reactor into cold fusion? No, that never happened. They were trying to gain the strategic ground of gaining a nuclear power plant because it is a very important thing to have. You have control over, again, the distribution of energy in that area. That is why they were trying to take them. Now that they have them, they are letting Ukrainian scientists work inside to make sure that everything is standardized inside, because at the end of the day, the Russians don't want a nuclear fallout any more than the Ukrainians do. It would be devastating for Russia as well. But the way in which you talk about these things, frame them, and then put them out there for the rest of the world to hear and consume is very important, and in the case of Tim Pool, Glenn Greenwald, dangerous. They are intentionally trying to get you to be completely and utterly freaked out about this, in the same way that it's like, yes, once the Russians get these labs, they're going to have control over like we have no idea what kind of incredible weapons and biological warfare machines they have, or cubes or tesseracts or what, we don't know. But if they get them, should they get them, it could spell disaster for all of us, or vice versa in the opposite direction, right?
Funding. Well, it says they upgraded many of the state food and safety consumer protection services in Ukraine, biosafety level 2. We'll talk about it. But I want to be honest and outright just say it. It seems that Russia and China are lying. It seems the US isn't covering this, and there are biolabs that have received some kind of funding.
I like the source. What is it? Oh, yeah, Timcast. Cool. Okay. Yeah. It seems like the rest of the world isn't covering this. I mean, I checked out timcast.com when I was doing my Timcast podcast, and here we are. I mean, case closed.
In Ukraine, but it doesn't appear that they're involved in making weapons or anything like that. The truth is closer to the middle, right? Well, before we get started, head over to timcast.com. Become a...
Closer to the middle, right? Yeah. Come, subscribe. Is he freaking out about BSL2? I don't know what he's freaking out about yet.
Wild speculation. Slap a question mark on it and run it as an article. As it's Bettridge's law of headlines, I believe it is, and it states that any headline that asks a question can be answered simply by no. Citing information from various Twitter posts, the article claimed that U.S. biological weapon laboratories are believed to operate in many cities that were recently attacked by Russia. You see how they play that game? Recently attacked. Yes, Russia attacked major cities. What if they said these major cities had bakeries? What if they said that they had like steel refineries or something? You'd be like, oh, they're going after their weapons. Don't bring me that speculation. But
the Russians forces are taking over the bakeries. We are in 0 hour now. Cold mist dawn has brought upon us a dark age. The Russians effectively control all the bakeries of Ukraine. What now? What future
they say since the
lies
1990s, the
before
two
us?
countries have worked together as part of an international agreement. Whoa. Marco Rubio said, he asked, does Ukraine have biological or chemical weapons? He didn't say, are they testing food products? So what is this?
Well, I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking. Did
everyone hear that, by the way? This clip keeps getting taken out of context, replayed, people talking about it. I'm going to show you Jackson Hinkle's entire firestorm about it, but like, she specifically said biological research facilities. Now, I'm not stating that should you be able to transform information that you get from a biological research facility into using something that you can weaponize, but that is very different than saying, do they have a biological warfare facility there? Do they have biological weapons ready for deployment? Are we in a Nick Cage film? All right. Is that what's happening here?
To gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
Okay. Let's slow down a minute here. It's a debunked conspiracy theory. Okay, let's play a game. Let's say that these are biosafety level 2 labs. The biosafety goes up to level 4. Let me pull up this article. This is from the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. It is a .gov website, Biological Threat Reduction Program, Ministry of Defense, COVID-19 Response Assistance. They say on April 11, 2020, President Zelensky visited the SED unit in Pokrovskoye City, Donetsk Oblast, and familiarized himself with the capabilities of the mobile laboratories to help military and civilian people during the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, maybe that's just COVID-19 stuff. Laboratory construct. The Biological Threat Reduction Program has upgraded many laboratories for the Ministry of Health and the State Food Safety and Consumer Protection Services of Ukraine, reaching biosafety level 2. In 2019, BTRP constructed 2 laboratories for the lab.
Biosafety level 2 is nothing Tim Pool. Tim Pool would be able to work in a biosafety level 2 lab without even taking off his beanie. Well, he would have to take off his beanie. Come on, we can't put out half truths.
One in Kiev and one in Odessa. All right. Let's cut through the noise.
Level 2 of 4.
What we have here is the admission that the U.S. did help build food and safety and consumer protection services in Ukraine, biosafety level 2. It doesn't sound like these are the same stories, and I want to make sure we're very, very clear here. But take it all with a grain of salt. Keep in mind, I want you to assess this.
The debating about the ridiculous tweets? Cool. I'll watch that whole thing.
What's the purpose of this in terms of consumer protection and food safety?
I got candy
The U.S.
now.
is concerned about COVID. Yes, very much so. Does that mean the U.S. is making weapons? No, it doesn't. But I do have questions, because if the U.S.
Okay, so you see right there? He did it. Right there. That's it right there. Does this mean this? No. Does this mean that? No. But. It's where he twists the whole thing around, keeps you scared, keeps you engaged, keeps you clicking, keeps you subscribing, keeps you giving the thumbs up. Even though, once again, yes, he is talking about level 2 security for something. Let's take a look at Glenn Greenwald, because he was on Tucker Carlson a couple days ago. I'll show you his Tucker Carlson clip as well. Oh God, I didn't know you had ads. Oh, I just gave JD Vance a cent. I apologize. We don't often rumble.
Clean up your room. Is or isn't justifiable, but because the United States is making some.
This is the future. Look at this shit. Wait, I can't skip it.
Subjected to a large amount of skepticism, should not be believed unless there's evidence.
Gridhook, thank you. Appreciate it.
Of assertions unaccompanied by evidence from the Pentagon, the State Department, the White House, or any other part of the biological weapons and chemical weapons under control, and that's what they're referring to. But they have no idea as well whether there are active biological and chemical labs the Russians and Chinese are alleging. They just simply decreed it to be false because their allegiance is to the United States government. Here, USA Today, also on February 25th, the day after the Russian invasion, quote, fact check. False claims of U.S. biolabs in Ukraine tied to Russian disinformation campaign. Let's remember that right before the 2020 election.
Why are you so happy? I don't get it. You seem incredibly happy to be reporting on something that should be otherwise incredibly frightening and grim. All right, so this is him on Tucker Carlson giving his speech on this subject.
When the government comes out and emphatically denies that they have biological weapons, we know they're not telling the truth. Remember the anthrax attacks right after 9/11? They were incredibly terrifying because of how weaponized they were. First, the government said it was from Al-Qaeda, then they said it was from Saddam Hussein. In 2008, they said, we solved the case. Actually, it came from a U.S. Army lab, from an infectious disease specialist under the auspices of Tony Fauci, a scientist who cultivated these weaponized strains of anthrax and deployed them on U.S. soil. We know they did the same thing with the coronavirus, where they manipulated the coronavirus to become more lethal and more contagious. They claim that those aren't biological weapons because inside their brain, their intention is not to use them, but just to study them. But the things they're making are exactly the same as what you would make if you were to make biological weapons. And you have to be so careful to understand what they...
Honestly, like just again, try to okay, I'll help you out, okay? We don't have to use our imaginations here. So then we know for a fact that China actually took this and they weaponized this and they made coronavirus more deadly. And what they've done, is they don't think it's an actual biological weapon because in their brains, if you were to think about this, they just think that what they're doing is research. Like it's indistinguishable now.
They mean when they deny that they have these.
Well, the last question, maybe you don't know the answer, but why Ukraine? You know, of all the countries you would conduct this kind of research in, you would pick one with like a solid medical infrastructure. You'd pick Germany or Israel or someplace with, you know, first-class scientific research going on. You would not pick Ukraine. Why Ukraine?
Unless you viewed Russia as your primary threat.
Unless you viewed Russia as your primary threat.
Provocative toward the Russians.
We want to be provocative towards the Russians.
Be in Ukraine developing all sorts of weapons, as we clearly.
Unless we want to be in Ukraine developing all sorts of weapons. We've been funding that country with lethal arms for 5 or 6 years. So clearly, there's an intention for the United States to be heavily involved in Ukraine. The Russians say their motive is to be threatening and provocative, but the United States denies that. But they have their tentacles inside Ukraine for many years.
It's a critical part of the narrative that has been.
It's a critical part of the narrative.
That's right.
And then, yeah, you got on the other end. That's right. That's right. Good job. Good job, Glenn. You have regurgitated the points that we need. We've heard what you have to say. This isn't just, by the way, Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard did yet another one of her little, like, ominous videos.
Here are the undeniable facts.
Oh, undeniable facts, you say?
There are 25 to 30 U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine.
Okay.
According to the U.S. government, these biolabs are conducting research on dangerous pathogens.
Okay.
Ukraine is in an active war zone with widespread bombing, artillery, and shelling, and facilities, even in the best of circumstances, could easily be compromised and release these deadly pathogens.
What are you saying here? What's the road you're going down here, Tulsi? Are you saying you want blood? You want blood for blood God? Is this like, let's just fully engage militarily? Or is it just kind of like, you know what, Ukraine, you should just stand down. Putin, you've made your point. If I was Putin's mother kind of stuff.
Now, like COVID, these pathogens know no borders. If they are inadvertently or purposely breached or compromised, they will quickly spread all throughout Europe, the United States, and the rest of the world, causing untold suffering and death. So in order to protect the American people, the people of Europe, the people around the world, these labs need to be shut down immediately, and the pathogens that they hold need to be destroyed. Instead of trying to cover this up, the Biden-Harris administration needs to work with Russia, Ukraine, NATO, the UN to immediately implement a ceasefire for all military action in the vicinity of these labs until they're secured and these pathogens are...
I swear to God, you think you're playing a video game. This whole thing. Like, this is a fucking mid-tier fetch quest side mission, and you're the mid-level boss. That's it, right? See, what we need to do is just everyone needs to stop war, so no more war for a little while, and then we'll get the people in there, and then we'll shut down all these dangerous biolabs the government is hiding secretly. These are secret biolabs, don't forget that. And then afterwards, we can go back to war, or whatever it is you're doing. I'm not entirely sure. What are you doing? I don't know. Hey, Putin, we got lunch next week, right? Yeah, that's gonna be great. That's gonna be awesome. So, yeah, Tulsi threw her hat in the ring. Oh, let's not forget Jackson Hinkle, right? Tulsi Gabbard is correct about the dangerous pathogens held in Ukrainian biolabs. My God. So is Tucker Carlson. Double my God. So is The Who, the band. Oh, no. Exclusive. Who says it advised Ukraine to destroy pathogens in health labs to prevent disease spread? Okay. So is the U.S. Department of Defense program, which admits to funding these labs and storing dangerous pathogens for bioweapons programs for research purposes. Oh, my God. Hey, it's that clip from that source that you remember was using during their debate that was actually kind of quickly debunked Yeah. The pathogens in Ukrainian labs vary by facility, Pope said, but some can be characterized as presenting a concern for the Ukrainian government. As an example, he cited African swine fever virus, which is highly contagious in pigs and caused several hundred outbreaks in Ukraine since 2012. Some labs, he said, may hold pathogen strains of what the Soviet BioWare's program preserved in freezers for research purposes. There is no place that's still any sort of infrastructure for researching or producing biological weapons, Pope said. Scientists being scientists, it wouldn't surprise me if some of these strains collections in some of these laboratories still have pathogen strains that go all the way back to the origins of that program. Again, gobbledygook does not present you with any hardcore evidence of anything. It is someone's musings. That's what you've posted here. You posted someone's musing, and you're using them as a way to continue to justify pushing this narrative. I don't know if you continue down this path. No? No. Will you correct the lies that you're spreading about biolabs? What's this?
These labs have actually allowed for and been responsible for multiple outbreaks of deadly viruses in the past, such as the African swine fever virus. This is not according to me. This is according to Director of the Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, Robert Pope himself.
Yeah, that's not what he says. Did you read your own source? Again, these are musings. This is like, it would not surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. You don't start a sentence with, it wouldn't surprise me, and then use that as the basis for, like, here is a factual affirmative statement. If someone is like, scientists being scientists, it wouldn't surprise me. Of course, if they had dildos the size of horses and trees could fly. Well, yeah, what you just said, again, is it wouldn't surprise me if. But that's not saying I have direct, irrefutable evidence of thing, and this is how thing enacts itself. When am I bringing on Sam Hyde as a guest? He refuses. He's refused so many times at this point. I feel like the guy is just trolling, trolling professionally. So anyways, let's listen to some other stuff. In an hour-long video, Glenn Greenwald gives credence to Russian claims that the Ukrainians were carrying out emergency disposal of dangerous pathogens they had been developing with US help. I'm going to translate a long thread by geneticists debunking these claims. First off, this tweet presents the claims. In the screenshot, RIA Novosti publishes documents it says were obtained by the Russian Defense Ministry. They purport to show that Ukrainians were scrubbing evidence of a biological weapons research program. Here is the beginning of the debunking thread by Olga Peterson, a Soviet-born geneticist living and working in Sweden. If you read Russian, you can read it there. Otherwise, I'll continue reading this thread and I'll translate. Good morning, dear Twitter users. This thread is a collaboration by scientists from Belarus, France, Russia, and Sweden on the topic of Ukraine's development of bacteriological weapons. We may not be specialists in the military propaganda and may even fall for it, but we can expose all the fakes published by the Goebbels TV. We work in this area. We were not banned by Google. We were not ordained by God himself to comb through the microbes and scientific articles. Obviously, a little bit of salt, we're dealing with. I showed you the graph already. So Zhuganov, the RIA, the Foreign Ministry, and others have become preoccupied with the documents allegedly providing the biological weapons were developed in Ukraine. We don't want to give a link, but here's a screenshot from a colleague. Now we'll analyze everything point by point. What the document said and why such documents exist, why bacteria is stored, what kind of bacteria is on the lists. 1. What's the document? First, let's talk about laboratory practices. There's a classification system for microbes, BSL, biological safety, and biological protection levels. It goes from 1 to 4. 1. Harmless organisms that do not cause disease. 2. Organisms capable of causing minor infections in humans and animals. 3. Organisms capable of causing serious infections. COVID is on this level. 4. Deadly organisms, plagues, cholera, smallpox, Ebola, etc. Depending on the BSL level, microbial laboratories require different levels of certification, different levels of equipment, air filtration, personnel protection, different routines for setting up experiments and destroying microorganisms. Any serious lab working with potentially pathogenic microbes, BSL-2, often BSL-3 and 4 always, should have standard routines for destroying them after the experiments are finished. This is standardized. This is routine. The whole thing that everyone is speculating on is not a thing. Let's say you checked some microbes for sensitivity to antibiotics, and now you said you've still got them in your petri dish. Naturally, you can't just throw them in the trash. Such cultures are autoclaved exactly as indicated in the leaked document. The, quote, moist heat method is used even in medical institutions where there's a high degree of infection with resistant types of bacteria. High pressure lowers the boiling point of water. So, without any difficulty, it is possible to maintain a constant 120 degrees to 135 degrees Celsius over time. This is sufficient to kill even temperature-resistant bacterial spores, such as Bacillus spores. When doing this, the safety officer draws up a certificate of destruction, which then must be signed by the laboratory assistant, who performed the procedure at the head of the laboratory. So, the leaked document is a standard bureaucratic procedure in any good microbiological laboratory, especially if it's certified through the intentional ISO standard. From the text of the documents on the screenshots, you can see that they belong to Kharkiv and the Poltava Regional Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the Ministry of Health in Ukraine, i.e. sanitary and epidemiological authorities. Having such protocols in these laboratories is an international norm. Number 2, Why are bacteria stored? Collections such as these strains are used to test equipment for a certain method familiar with the PCR and to detect such bacteria. During the test, first a sterile sample is used, and then a sample guaranteed to contain a certain bacterium. They took it to see if the results are to be expected. The calibrated instrument or method they can use either used for clinical samples identification or for scientific research. The sterile sample is simple, but how can you get a sample of a purified bacterium that doesn't contain impurities of other creatures and substances? You can, of course, isolate it from nature and then comb through it in many times over many months, but it's much easier to just buy ready-to-use culture in a jar. For example, here's an advertising booklet from the site of the Russian firm Gallon. Number 3, what kind of bacteria are on the list? 3A, the list itself. We've compiled a table with all the microbes listed in the documents and posted it for free access for everyone to see. By the way, I know this is not as sexy or exciting as the potential for some James Bond style, like, bacterial infection, bioweapons, Nick Cage will save us all. The findings are public. They're available for you to go check out. You can go check it out. It's a lot less scary once you realize that they are actually following the same safety protocol that all of these research lab facilities, not biological warfare facilities. I don't know if they have to adhere to different rules and regulations, but they're probably just as strict as is just available openly. But again, Glenn Greenwald is not going to make a 1 hour Rumble video that's in any way interesting if he's being like, oh, by the way, to be completely transparent, here's all the information on what has happened and why this isn't actually as horrifying as they're making it out to be. Are there deadly diseases agents on the list? Not one. No cholera, plague, tularemia, typhus, anthrax, Legionnaire's disease, syphilis. 3B, types of strains. We'd be hypocrites if we didn't emphasize the difference between various species of bacteria and their strains, so let's explain briefly. Reference bacterial strains can be purchased from many microbial collections worldwide, including Russian ones. They are used for comparative analysis when it is necessary to compare the properties of the hospital or experimental isolates within a known standard. In the table, these strains are labeled ATCC, NCTC, and VKM. In the spreadsheet, we provided links exactly to what the strains are, so anyone can read about the properties and the level of biological protection about working with them. Note that while the ATCC and NCTC collections are American, VKM stands for, I can't pronounce this, all Russian collections of microorganisms, i.e. the strains were ordered from Russia. Clinical strains, aka hospital isolates, are obtained from samples, skin, blood, pus, sputum, smears, etc. taken from sick people. Clinical strains are compared with reference strains in order to correctly identify them and learn about their properties. These tests are needed to clarify the clinical picture to determine the correct treatments and conditions of the patient. Such strains can be resistant to a number of antibiotics, which I wrote about in at least 2 threads. See the list pinned in my profile. Strains are also taken from the environment, water, soil, plants, waste, etc. They're used to study various biological processes. In general, these do not pose a hazard to health. Experimental strains are used for scientific research, such as isolates, possible to identify the gene responsible for the toxicity, study the difference between toxic and non-toxic strain. You can set up experiments to study these functional bacterial cells, such as division, sensitivity to various antibiotics, the effects of chemical compounds, survival conditions. These are also industrial strains, of course, from bacteria. Various compounds can be obtained by chemical purification. One such common commercially used compound is Botox, a toxin from bacteria, Clostridium botulinum. There you are. This type of bacteria does not appear in the list. In addition, the widely used Botox, enzymes, preparation for scientific research, various proteins, compounds, etc. are extracted from bacteria, widely used in various fields for experimental biology. 3C, hazard assessment of the strains. Of all the bacteria on the list, Klebsiella can be potentially dangerous. Of all the strains listed for reference, we cannot confirm the origin of the second strain. However, potentially dangerous multi-drug resistant clinical trials, such as Klebsiella, are known to this day mainly from Southeast Asia. Judging by the number of strains on this table, this is most likely an internal clinical isolate. Therefore, the old favorite, Escherichia coli or E. coli, probably one of the most studied bacteria. It is used as a model organism. It's also in your poo. For genetic engineering, such as probiotic, depending on the strain, this bacterium can be pathogenic or it can be a friend. It lives in our intestines. This is one strain of E. coli and many clinicians talk about, and that is the 0157. This is the most common pathogen of all E. coli, causing diarrhea in animals and humans. And like any living organism, E. coli can mutate, and from a harmless bacterium in our microflora can become a pathogen, but it takes a long time, several centuries. For example, strain 055 of the parent 0157 took a latter 400 years to become more like, once you have the actual science behind all this, it becomes a lot less scary and a lot more clinical, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is not as horrifying as everyone is making this out to be, and it sounds like it's a lot more standardized, which you'll find in a lot of biological research facilities globally. It's important to note that simply releasing a strain from the laboratory is tantamount to simply killing it. Bacteria designed and stored in numerous collections are not adapted to survive in the wild. It's also tantamount to releasing an animal raised in a zoo in a forest and the hope will somehow adapt there. In the same way, no one takes a strain of E. coli from the streets and starts doing research on it. They've developed protective mechanisms, including resistance to many bacterial agents. In order to create biological weapons, you'd need serious equipment and a much larger base and strains than those listed. Potentially dangerous strains need to be tested for a long time to determine their stability in the environment, as well as to study the method of its delivery, its infectivity in various animal species, the rate of spread, so on. The RIA photo shows that the Kharkiv branch destroyed only 40 test tubes. Of the Poltavana branch destroyed 24 test tubes, not bioreactors, not even Eldrin Meyer flasks, but test tubes. Without irony, we know, to put it mildly, this is not enough to conduct research of bacterial weapons. What it all means that it is a pure microbiological laboratory and is engaged in standard cleaning. None of the above strains are bacteriological weapon agents. If you look at the list of what any microbiological laboratory and especially clinical laboratory consistently utilizes, such as laboratories could be classified as potentially developer of weapons of mass destruction, including in Russia as well. I'm skipping a long section where she discusses the concept of where there being a Russian genome that could possibly be targeting by specifically designed biological weapons. Genome. I still haven't seen any of the original claims, but you can be sure they're ridiculous, because they still are. It's the plot of Metal Gear Solid. Please stop giving it credence. Conclusion. The statements distributed by the RIA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, are unsubstantiated, anti-scientific bullshit. Bullshit. Anti-scientific. Put the stamp on there. And fear-mongering for clicks and Rumble and Ruble and everything else. Like, holy shit. The group that work hard on this thread are parsing the list and checking all the strains. Here is a doctor of biology in Sweden who did it. Candidate of biological sciences in Belarus who did it. Doctor of biological sciences in France who did it. Biologist, postgraduate student, Russia. Biologist, postgraduate student, Russia. Biologist, Russia. Microbiologist, Belarus. Microbiologist, Belarus. Microbiologist, Belarus again. Back to me for now. I'll just add, aside from the Russian claims, has so ably annihilated, Greenwald bases his suspicions on what he describes as questionable statement by the Victoria Nuland in congressional testimony. That was his jump-off point. And Glenn has done this before. He uses these jump-off points and he thinks they're very scary, and it's like, ooh, spoopy. We have a single testimony like that is a little bit ambiguous and doesn't sound like they completely and conclusively called out what I think they should be calling out. Well, yeah. Boom. Click on me, get my link, get my Rumble, get my clicks. One correction to this thread, the original had a mistake. High pressure increases the boiling point of water. If you read the tweet after that one, you would have seen that it made sense. Just one incorrect word, not to disparage the entire thing. So, yeah, a thorough and utter debunking. Other people have done the same thing, using the same methodology, by the way. Quick thread. I spent last week figuring out how the American far right became obsessed with Ukrainian biolabs. I learned two things. One, the right is really warming back up to Putin. Number two, the origins of the specific conspiracy theory are dumber than you could ever imagine. Go on, because I can imagine some dumbass shit. First off, Russia has always claimed its adversaries were the ones using biological weapons when they were about to use them, but that didn't use them to justify the invasion last week. Putin gave an ambling speech before the invasion. He never mentioned biolabs. Wait, where's the rest of this thread? First off, okay. Biolabs were a talking point until Russia's first line of propaganda about Zelensky being a Nazi failed spectacularly, yet kind of hard to label Zelensky a Nazi for self-evident reasons. Here's a striking chart from the data compared Pirate tracking biolabs on 15 influential far-right social networks that jump. That was the day of the invasion. Bam, 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 bam. So, what made the biolabs conspiracy theory take off on the day of the invasion? It was a Twitter thread by now banned account, War Clandestine. Not again, War Clandestine. The account was previously a QAnon account that had been evading bans with new names. Holy shit, I think it may be onto something about Ukraine. Zelensky said the Russians are firing at military installations. How broad is that term? Cool. The QAnoners. I talked about this the other day. The QAnoners have infiltrated this, and now this is their new kind of fear-mongering cause, and it's getting picked up by big names like Tucker Carlson, Glenn Greenwald. I'm sure Russell Brand has made a video on this. I don't have to check it. Tim Pool. You name it. It's out there. Holy shit. Thank you, QAnoners, for once again destroying the universe. The biolabs thread spread like wildfire across the right on Rumble and QAnon forums thanks to the Great Awakening. It got a massive push by the Donald. It is now called Patriots.win. Remember the Donald because it posted literal battle plans before January 6th. These were the battle plans. But let's dive deeper into where War Clandestine got its insider info about Ukrainian biolabs. Where did he get that map Ukrainian biolabs from his viral tweet? From an anti-vax Gab user 8 days prior. It had 3 comments. It wasn't just the talking points yet. Once War Clandestine's post took off amongst right-wing influencers, it was everywhere on the English language far right. Pro-Trump Q forums, darn easy about rooting for Putin, fucking Haas, Infrared, Jackson Hinkle, Samira Khan. Like, again, a lot of these people, I don't know, Samira's not a Twitch streamer, but Haas, Infrared, this is a checkmark verified Twitch partner who is spreading this motherfucking shit. Jackson is an affiliate, also spreading this shit together, doing the fucking work of QAnon conspiracy theorists all over the internet. By Tuesday, China's foreign affairs minister started pushing the conspiracy theory, de facto aligning with Russia. Wednesday, Tucker Carlson led a show by claiming the Biden administration was funding secret biolabs in Ukraine. After failing for 2 full weeks, Russian propaganda finally had its line that resonated with the global far right. The reason they invaded is now for the biolabs, despite not mentioning before invading. The denazification is now becoming the de-biolabification, I guess. The bioweapons were an English language green conspiracy theory until last week. Excuse me. We're better now. And now most parts about it in Russian. Blue, Russia found a pretext, post-text for the Ukraine war, a gift from the American far right. So the whole story came together on how the biolabs conspiracy came to take over the global far right, put Putin back in the good graces of the American conspiracy theorists. It has decades of history in it. I hope you can read it. But there you have it. There it is. Laid bare before you all to enjoy.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we beseech thee to smite down our enemies. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble court jesters, here to amuse you. To our lords, Trevor R., we give thanks for this spit of land for us to eke out this meager existence. To our knights, Merid, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Ellie Leslie, Alex P., Brandon, Words Greenwood, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Val 9000, Jenna Tall, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Yanis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our flag in a veil, and we salute you, our friends.